Okay, so there hasn't really been much in the way of new 5x5s in 2025. Most of the new hardware was released last year in 2024, but obviously I've still got to make this video. So let's get started on what the best 5x5 on the market is, and then we can talk about budget options later. So right here I've got quite a few different ones. So we've got the dual and triple track AoChuang V6, and then we've got a special QiYi one, which is essentially the same thing as a dual track, but with slightly weaker magnets in between the core and the corner, and it's just like placed slightly differently. Then of course we've got the VinCube, and we've got the GAN 562 and the X-Man Hong, and these are kind of the options to consider. The VinCube of course is only about £25, and it performs quite well, but I don't think anybody's really going to be using it besides, well, Stanley Chappell and maybe other 5-blinders. For some reason it just apparently works very well for 5-blind stuff. And, well, Stanley Chappell is now sponsored by VinCube and is using this, and he broke his own world record a few months ago with that exact cube. As for the rest of them, the most popular choice is probably going to be the GAN 562, and this was the one used by Tymon Kolasinski in his very, very impressive 5x5 world record average at the World Championships. I was there in the audience. It's slightly larger than quite a few of the other options released in 2024, and is available in both UV and frosted. But of course it is £54 for the UV and $48 for the frosted, so it is on the rather expensive side. But don't let that put you off if you want the best 5x5 on the market, because for many people this is going to be the best option. It is a bit larger than the AoChuang V6 and the X-Man Hong, but the turning is very smooth and very nice. So if you want potentially the best 5x5 and you like other GAN cubes, then this is the cube for you. Interestingly, the mechanism is a bit different, as it's essentially a 3x3 shell with these inner pieces around it. And this means that you can actually take out all of these inner pieces and make it a 3x3, and it actually performs decently, like better than an original Rubik's brand, for example, as a 3x3, which is pretty crazy for to see that on a 5x5. I don't think you can do that with any other 5x5, although to be fair, I haven't tried, so I can't verify for certain. Now, as for the other options, I feel the X-Man Hong is quite underrated. It's only £30 and is UV coated. It's quite smooth, it's quite stable. And if you like the new Warrior 7x7 that was recently released, then you'll probably like the X-Man Hong, although of course it is twice the price, and it is a 5x5 and not a 7x7. I wonder if they will release some other budget cubes like the Warrior 7x7 UV, considering they're clearly able to do that quite well, if they wouldn't put logos in the corner. That's going to haunt QiYi for a long time to come. Okay, and as for the AoChuang V6, this is my personal favourite, and it's only £40 for the dual track, which is the one I would use, although possibly the QiYi dual track, but it's essentially the same thing, just slightly weaker in the magnet strength, and interestingly it is about the same price, which is nice that QiYi aren't trying to charge too much for that. It is just a case of putting in their own core magnets instead of the factory ones. So we've also got the triple track, and the triple track has extra magnets in the feet, and like, that's fine. I don't think it makes that much difference, but personally I think that's just a bit unnecessary and going too far, and you're paying an extra £5 for magnets that you don't really need. So personally, my choice is between these two, which are basically the same thing, the AoChuang V6 dual track. However, the majority of top cubers probably use the GAN 562, so for many people that is the option to get. Now let's have a look at some budget options. So obviously we've got the AoChuang V6 single track and single track UV coated, And these are essentially the same thing, they just don't have core magnets. So in many ways, this is just the go-to budget choice for 5x5. It's the same thing as the AoChuang V6, it just doesn't have core magnets, so why wouldn't you get it? And in many ways, that is fair enough. The single-track AoChuang V6 is only £22, and it performs very well, and to be fair, maybe it is the best option for £22. Obviously, this wouldn't be a comparison video if I didn't talk about other options, so we've still, of course, got the Dian Neza, if you like the Dian feel, but this has kind of died out and isn't very popular anymore, but it's still something worth thinking about. The Dian Neza for £25 is available in both standard and strong magnet strength, but there's really little difference. So I don't know what they were thinking about releasing two versions that feel so similar to each other. I did use this for a while back in 2023, but then switched back. There's also, of course, the classic MGC, which is still popular, even though it's 6 years old now. And it's a bit larger than the AoChuang V6. In fact, probably, it's basically the same size as the GAN 562, and it still turns quite well. I did at one point also use a core magnetic version of this, which I'm not sure if it's still available, but for just £17 you can get this, the MGC 5x5, which is a pretty good 5x5, slightly larger. So if you have big hands, that might be the best budget option for you. Still, I can mention the Valk because for some reason I still have them, but obviously it's very outdated now, and most people will probably prefer the X-Man Hong if you like a QiYi feel, but the Valk is still there for some reason. We've also got the Dian Sheng Solar S5M. It so much looks like these corner pieces are thinner than the edge pieces, and then I actually go and measure them and they're not, so I don't know what's happening there. Like, it looks like they're thinner and then they're not, but maybe it's because they're not thicker? I don't know. But ultimately this is a decent budget 5x5, but I don't think it's really going to impress anyone who has an MGC or an AoChuang V6 or anything like that. There's still the AoChuang WRM, but obviously that's just been replaced by the AoChuang V6 and isn't really available anymore. So the other thing to mention in the budget magnetic range is the YJ Pocket 5x5/Zlong 5x5M, because they are the same thing. And YJ, I don't know why they released the Pocket 5x5 and acted as if it was something different when it is literally the same design as the YJ Zlong. It's 58mm, exact same mechanism, it just doesn't come with any accessories and comes in a smaller box for a lower price. So yeah, you can get the Zlong for £15 with the accessories, or the YJ Pocket 5x5 for, I think it's £11, which doesn't come with the accessories, but is the cheapest magnetic 5x5 on the market, simply put. Yeah. Okay, and finally, for the ultra budget, we've got the Meilong 5x5 and the Qizeng S2. I've also recently found a few Qizeng S's in my warehouse, so I have listed them at £6, but these two are both £8, and they are not magnetic, so only get them if you really want the cheapest 5x5, because magnets, even just magnetizing these, will significantly improve them. But the Meilong 5x5 is slightly smaller and it turns reasonably well, but the magnets would definitely help to line it up. And then yeah, the Qizeng S2 feels slightly slower, a bit more stable, it's a bit bigger, but again, magnets would definitely help. So Personally, I think most people will probably prefer the Meilong if you really want an £8 5x5 for some strange reason, but really you should just pay a bit more and then you get significant improvements. So ultimately, the best 5x5s that I would recommend is the Meilong 5x5 on a budget, and then probably the AoChuang V6 single track UV for around the £20 mark, and then the dual track AoChuang V6 for the £40 mark. And then if you're willing to spend loads, some people will prefer the GAN 562 at £55. And you can buy all these cubes directly from me at speedcubing.org, and they'll ship out quickly from my warehouse right here in Peterborough.